What's up, Canes fans? Peter Ariz here, going live immediately after Miami secures a 53-31 victory over Duke. They were down at halftime, 21-17. They were down early in the third quarter, 28-17. And the offense really puts the foot on the gas pedal. They score 36 points there in the second half. Miami's defense also steps up, some turnovers that were huge to get this thing going. But Cam Ward, 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, and Xavier Restrepo breaks the Miami receiving record. You know, we got to shout him out there. It became official tonight. 8 receptions, 146 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then that huge touchdown, the 66-yarder there that really opened the game up for the Hurricanes there in the fourth quarter. And I mean, look, you could say that was the one that you could finally say that Miami felt comfortable about the game, but it was an ugly first half in terms of after going up 14-0, allowing Duke to get back into it. The Duke's defense got into a rhythm. The offense, wasn't extremely consistent in the first half there. But of course, Cam Ward and the offense really keep it going in the second half there. You got to give credit to the defense, like I said, in the second half. Was it perfect? No. Duke, let's see what the numbers were. Let me pull them up here. Passing the ball, Malik Murphy, 325 yards on 25 completions. So he was 25 of 41, just like Cam Ward. Cam Ward with 400 yards, but 7.9 yards per completion for Malik Murphy. Obviously made some bad decisions as well in the pass game. Let's get into some comments here. Fresh3542 says we should have won 30-17. Look, in an ideal world, yes. They had an opportunity still to score 60 points there. But defensively, I think there's still going to be some things to clean up. My pick was 40-13 before this game. So I said a 27-point win. Miami wins by 22. Had a chance to score there. Again, defense, not a clean performance from them. 2 weeks in a row against bad offenses. We saw Florida State last week, did a really good job against them. But to me, wish they would have had a cleaner performance. But they stepped up when you needed them most there in the second half. Kevin Dennis says, JoJo traded a DB. Please, you're not the first person to say that, but I doubt that happens at this point of the season. I just don't see it. Boyo and Hamburg, appreciate you getting on, man. He says, what's up from Germany? My boy Chris from the lab says, who's next up with 25 going down, and that did not look like a good injury. We don't speculate on stuff like that, but Jadeus Richard, who has had his ups and downs, but I think today had some really good moments, and for a guy like him, similar to a DJ Ivy to me, who we see he's in the NFL now, obviously got hurt, but coming back now for the Bengals, and to me, he's a guy who has all the ability in the world that if he can put it together, if he can get that confidence going, then he could be a real asset for this defensive back group. Big pick for him today. Had a couple other nice plays. He's going to give you some good. He's going to give you some bad. But to answer your question, who's next up with 25 going down? Look, Ryan Mack hasn't played this year. Hasn't played much. I don't know if he played in some of the earlier games this year, if they're trying to preserve a red shirt, but he could be someone. I think Robbie Washington, hypothetically, would be a guy next up in the mix. And he's been gaining confidence and gaining the trust of the coaches every week in practice. So maybe him. Asking about Damari Brown. Look, Coach Cristobal said near the end of the season, I think if we're being optimistic, then postseason, whether that's playoffs, whether that's ACC championship, I don't know, but I personally, I'm not going to expect him back for the regular season. Yeah, Kyle says Miami outscored Duke 37-3 at the end of the game. I think it was 36-3, but yeah, it was a great way to finish the game, and it kind of felt like that USF game in a sense. Pickett is another Jeremiah. Let's see. We covered as Canes Cats Heat 305 says, yes, again, Miami was 20.5 point favorites. They win this game by 22 points. It was a little dicey there at the end, and Miami could have scored 60, had another chance to score at the end, and they didn't. So let's see what else we got here. Just looking at Farron Crawford says Richards okay. I don't know, man. I mean, I got to tell you, I was watching on TV and it did not look great. He was, again, don't like to speculate, but he was grabbing, I believe, his right leg, pointing at the lower part of his right leg. Could it be a calf? Could it be an ankle? I don't know. It looked like something, underneath the knee. So that was just my view of it, but it did not look like a quick one. But hopefully I'm wrong, man. Hopefully I'm really wrong. Eric Cook says defense was an abomination. It was not pretty, man. I mean, look, 325 yards passing. The run game for them, they only averaged 3 yards a carry. So I think that if you want to look for a positive, there it is. But yeah, they did what they needed to do when they needed it. It as simply as I can put it. It really bad stretch there from the middle of that first quarter to the end of the first half. That was not pretty whatsoever. But if we're being honest, once Miami, the defense made a couple stops and then the offense did what they needed to, they got up and it was tough for Duke to really do much. Devon Mayfield says, man, give OJ his praises. He changed the game. OJ Frederic, awesome game from him. They had a pretty bogus pass interference call on him early in the game, but he had an interception, nice return on it, a few other big plays on the ball. We've been talking about him earlier than anyone out there in the Canes, media world. OJ Frederic came in, as an early summer enrollee and really did a great job in the weight room to get caught up to speed. And they haven't really tested him that much this year, but his ball skills were on display today. I think he's a future first-round pick in the NFL draft. Obviously, he's a true freshman, so we got a few years away from that. But I agree, Devon. Yeah, definitely think OJ deserves his praises. Martin Dubé, appreciate you in Botswana, my man. What time is it over there right now? He says, after 1 week of no drama, we were back to getting behind to a weaker team. Yeah, it was unfortunate, man. It was a tough first half there, and then I wouldn't even say an entire first half. You get up 14-0. We feel pretty good early in that game, and then they kind of fall asleep, let Duke get back in the game, get Malik Murphy some confidence in that offense, and then really the defense for Duke made some stops. So they fell asleep there in the middle of the game, but we've seen this team really come out of halftime strong and did a great job in that third quarter and then early into the fourth. Eric Cook says Zaquan at corner. Listen, get him on the field. I don't think he'll necessarily play corner, but maybe Mish Powell. He had a solid game today. Obviously, a big interception for him early in the game, but maybe we see him more in a nickel spot and Zaquan out there as well. I mean, you have limited personnel there, so you're gonna have to move some guys around. But he was flying around there in that third and fourth quarter. High grade says Patterson's a stud, man. Agreed. The lab, man. Appreciate you, Chris. If anyone down here is looking for work as a skills guy, corners, receivers, hit up Chris, the lab. Appreciate you for always, man, tuning in. And as he said it, man, like and subscribe. JR Bar 2015 says Malik Murphy was the MVP of the Canes defense. Yeah, man, there were some questionable decisions made by him. He has some talent, but shoot, if he was the quarterback to your team, I think you'd be pretty frustrated in some of the decisions out there. Agreed, Philippe. Let's see what else we got here. JR Bar says Canes defense is single biggest contributor to Cam's Heisman campaign. Yeah. And listen, they were trying to throw another one there for him at the end. They're trying to get the stats padded a bit. Obviously Cam got hit, but Ferran Crawford said props to X for getting the records. Agreed, man. We talked about it before. A lot of comments here about Jadeus Richard. It didn't look pretty, but I'm not going to speculate. Primetime Rambo, man, appreciate the contribution here. He says, for the love of God, make getting the balls to tight end a priority. I'm tired of seeing 4 wide receiver formations, user talent. Look, I don't disagree, man. Looking at the numbers, Arroyo only had 1 catch. Riley Williams had 1 catch, big play downfield. I agree with you. I don't think that it's easy to criticize after 53 points are scored. But in the flow of the offense, for sure. I mean, you look at some of these dump down plays or plays to the flats that you get to an Elijah Arroyo or even an Elijah Lofton, who we saw him score a touchdown today. And he also, is out there in a variety of different ways. But you get it if you get it side to side with them horizontally, I think they can get you 4 or 5 yards. But again, 53 points, man, very difficult to criticize a lot of things offensively. Martin Dubé says, I felt the tackle by Zaquan here in Africa. I like that. So, yeah, guys, I mean, get any last questions in here. Just want to do a quick instant reaction here. The defense has to be better. I mean, there's no doubt about that. This was a really poorly rated Duke offense by the numbers. They've only scored they scored 31 today. They had scored 45 earlier this year against Middle Tennessee State, but they did not score more than 27 before that. So second highest scoring game of the year for them. So that's, not a good trend in terms of Miami's defense. But with this Canes offense, you got to know that if they keep the other team 35 or less points, which sounds like such a low bar, and it really is. But for the most part, this Canes offense, for the teams they're playing right now, is up to the test. So, I really have a tough time criticizing anything offensively where there are missed opportunities. Yes, early in the game there where there's some missed throws by Cam Ward. Yes, but when you see what he ends up doing with the rest of the offense, they make up for some of the mistakes they make earlier in the game. Could they have avoided that 14-0 to 21-17 flip? Yes, without a doubt. And when you get to these big boys at the end of the season, you can't afford that sort of swing. But 100%, I think that you could say it was getting the job done. Getting to a few more comments here. Natalie Ann says a win is a win, but it wasn't pretty. Defense needs to get to work. Look, the spread was 20.5. So Miami wins by 22. They do what Vegas expects them to do. But I agree, Natalie, 100%. Can you imagine if this defense doesn't have that little lapse in the second quarter there, and then early into the third quarter? Really could have been a 40-point win. Trenton Breeze, man, appreciate you hopping on here. Ralph Lopez says at least the D comes through in the end. There are no Ward comebacks without the D getting stops. Just wish they could get stops early. I think we're all on the same page there, man. It's it's pretty crazy how they've been behind in half of these games and now 3 or 4 of these games, and you still can cover these spreads and you're still scoring as much as you're scoring. But yeah, it would just be a little bit easier on the heart rate if they could get ahead and stay ahead like they did against Florida State. AJ asking about Richards, Jadeus Richard with him hurt, and we'll see, man. I'm not going to speculate on injury. It did not look very good, but Robbie Washington does a Mish Powell step into a nickel spot. So Danny Boy Kane, legend, says 36-10 in the second half. I like the way the defense stepped up, but we have to do it sooner. We have to adjust sooner. I didn't like the way we were playing in the first half defensively. By just going man, elite teams like Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon will make you pay for not adjusting. I agree, Danny. I mean, I think that everyone can pretty much say the first half was not acceptable from a defensive standpoint. The offense missed some opportunities as well. They could have been up. They could have been up 28-7, 21-0 in the blink of an eye, and they may have, forced Duke to make some adjustments as well. But I agree with you, man. That's not going to fly once you get to the playoffs, and that's obviously what the goal is here. All right, Canes fans, appreciate everyone for hopping on today. Again, Miami wins 53-31 against Duke. Fall behind 21-17 at halftime. Manny Diaz had his group playing hard in the first half there. After Miami goes up 14-0, Duke fights back, and then Miami does what they've done pretty much all season long in some of these games. You saw it in the USF game. Cal, it took them a while to get going, but they won that game as well. Virginia Tech, that was a heart stopper, but the Canes take control here in the second half. Miami wins 53-31. Cam Ward, his Heisman campaign continues on. We'll see what happens next week. Miami, Georgia Tech. Canes are 9-0 into the second week of November. Go Canes. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel.